we're doing this today. I encourage all of you next weekend to take in many of the Veterans Day programs that will be in our area. Many of the different organizations like the VFW or the American Legion will be holding programs. Please take some time and go out and enjoy that. We are fortunate again to have another speaker here. Dwight Boddorf currently is the Borough Manager here in Tarentum, and I got to know him through email initially, but fortunately we were able to host Representative Chris DeLuzio in a meeting, and I got to meet Dwight at that time as well. He's a very important person when it comes to speaking on behalf of veterans. So, without further ado, let's give Dwight a little round of applause and welcome him.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Dwight Boddorf. Some of you I know, some of you I do not know, but I'm happy to speak with anybody after if you have any questions about veterans services or benefits. I'm a former Marine. I'm an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. I'm a Purple Heart recipient and a Combat Action Ribbon recipient. Previously, I have served as the Director of Veterans Affairs for Allegheny County. I have served as the Head of Public Affairs and Patient Advocate for VA Butler Healthcare and the Director of Military and Veterans Affairs for the Community College of Allegheny County. I've dedicated much of my life to serving veterans, and today I stand before you to speak about a cause that is both duty and an honor: veterans advocacy. This is not just a term or a movement. It is a pledge to stand by those who have stood by us at the front lines, for those who have sacrificed their comforts, their time, and all too often their health and well-being to defend the values and the freedoms that we cherish. To advocate for veterans is to recognize the battles they face do not end when the guns fall silent, and for many of our veterans, coming home is not a return to normalcy, but the beginning of a new kind of challenge. They have to integrate back into society that has moved on without them, find new careers, manage health issues, and often wrestle with the invisible wounds of war, such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. I wish I would have been around earlier when Peggy was here for your family, that somebody could have used an advocate for your family for your benefits, and things would have been pushed through. Unfortunately, there are a number of veterans who have served both in previous wars and currently who do not get the advocacy that they deserve. They do not get the benefits that they deserve, and they often miss out on things for themselves, their family, their children. I myself struggled to find a veterans advocate, which is why I got involved with it. I was wounded pretty severely when I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was hit by what's called an IED, an improvised explosive device, a roadside bomb, during my tour. I fractured my spine in multiple places. My head, you can still see the scar here. I still suffer from nerve and muscle damage. I often have, shake and nerve damage, and I still have to, multiple times a year, I have to get spinal procedures to deal with ongoing pain. I have 2 surgeries coming up in the next 2 weeks. I did not have an advocate to help me through these things. And when I came back from war, it's something that I had to figure out myself. It's something that I struggled with when I was in college. I came back at a time before the new GI Bill came out, and so I was transitioning out of the military into college during a transitional period in the United States history. There was new benefits and programmings coming out for veterans that were very poorly understood at the time. We still had a stigma from the Vietnam generation and from the Gulf War as these individuals that come back and we're all broken, we have post-traumatic stress disorder, we cannot do anything to contribute to society. And that is the furthest thing from the truth. Many veterans and the generations that have come before me have built many things that are what make America great today. I was fortunate enough that some of the other veterans on campus, some of the older generations, took me under their wing, and they helped me become an advocate not only for myself but for others in the institution that I was at, which was at Penn State at the time. I got involved in helping other veterans figure out their GI Bill, which was brand new at the time, this version of the GI Bill. If you did not know, there's actually 7 different versions of the GI Bill, and they all actually have different rates, payments, things like that, and affect everybody differently. So veterans' benefits can be extremely hard to navigate given that there's so many differences based on when you served. This type of advocacy became important for me, and it became a good portion of my life. It's something that I still do, that I'm still very proud of, that I still get involved with, whether it's through nonprofits, the Veterans Day Parade, which I encourage everyone to attend in Pittsburgh on November 11th, if you are able to make it. But it also means making sure that veterans have access to quality health care, mental health services, and the full range of benefits that they have rightfully earned. It's about cutting through the red tape that often entangles the claims and fights for fair handling of cases. It means pushing for improvements in the VA system, and not just with words, but persistent informed action. It goes beyond services and benefits as well. Veterans advocacy is about respect and inclusion. It's about creating opportunities for veterans in the workforce and recognizing the invaluable skills and experiences they bring to our businesses and our communities. It's about education, providing veterans with the tools that they need to thrive in new careers and making sure their families are supported in these transitions. Moreover, it's about never forgetting. It's about ensuring that the stories of our veterans are told, retold, and that their sacrifices are remembered, their achievements are celebrated. It's about teaching the next generation the true cost of freedom and the value of service. This advocacy also is a challenge to each of us as individuals. It's a call for us to listen to our veterans, to understand their experiences, and to recognize the contributions of their lives into our nation's fabric. It's a call to action that does not discriminate between political lines, social status, or demographics. The universal call to give back to those who have given so much to us. Everyone in this room here can advocate for veterans in your own way. I encourage you to talk to your local elected officials, whether that's at the municipal level, the county level, the state level, or the federal level. There are less and less veterans in the community. There's less and less involved in politics. We are slowly but surely losing our voice in the national dialogue. And we need all the advocates that we can get to make sure that the benefits that we have earned stay with us and that they carry on to the next generation. If you didn't know, Allegheny County has one of the highest veterans populations in the country. The state of Pennsylvania has the fourth largest veterans population in the country. We are the largest population in the country without a active duty installation. Allegheny County has more than Philadelphia. We have about 85,000 veterans. The larger area comprises of over 200,000 veterans. So we have a rich history, and we still have very much an important place in the world of veterans advocacy here. To be a veterans advocate is to commit to action, is to be vigilant, vocal, and dedicated. It is not merely to sympathize, but to empathize, to channel that empathy into tangible support. It requires us to be the keepers of our brothers and sisters' stories, the loudspeakers for their needs, and the bridge to successful reintegration to civilian life. 200,000 service members transition from active duty to civilian life each year. The total number of veterans in 2023 is roughly about 18 million, which is 6.7% of the population, down from 18% in 1980. The estimated total number of veterans in 2050 will be about 11 million. It is a 35% decline in veterans. The average decrease in the veterans population over year after year is 1.65%. The total number of veterans with service-connected disability is about 5 million. The total number of homeless veterans is about 70,000. Veterans comprise 10.6% of all the homeless population in the United States. We are twice as likely to become homeless than those who didn't serve in the military, and more than 1 million veterans live in poverty. These are things that we can advocate daily, monthly, annually to change, to fix, and to make sure that no veteran is struggling for everything that they have done for our country. As we continue to uphold the values for which our veterans fought, let us remember their battles are our battles, their struggles are our struggles. The freedoms they fought for include the freedom to lead a full, healthy life after service. In closing, let us not speak of just gratitude. Let us demonstrate it through unwavering advocacy and support for our veterans. Their service does not end, and neither should our support. That's it.
Why so many veterans in Pennsylvania? What brings them here?
That is a very interesting and long question. It has to do with the founding of the nation when there was only so many states originally. Veterans traditionally have a long tradition of serving in families. You are twice as likely to serve if you've had a family member than serve, and by the nature of us being one of the original colonies, that tradition has carried down through family members after family members. Multiple places have studied it. That's about as best as the answer that they can come up with. I'd like to think it's because we're a little more patriotic in Pennsylvania, but that's just my personal feelings on that.
I have a question. You said at the federal level, we're starting to not have as strong of a voice
Yes.
for veterans. Why do you think that is?
There's numerous reasons. So there's a decline in the veterans population overall. And so when you are, when there's only so much dollars on the table and you have to choose between 1% of your population and maybe 90% of your population, simple economics. Economics doesn't always make it the right thing, though. We also have a lower number of elected officials in Congress. At one point in time during the Korean War, the percentage of veterans serving in Congress was around 75-80%. It was an all-time high. Now it's less than 15%. So there's less people that are intimately aware of what's going on in the veteran space and less of us to worry about. At the same point in time, you also have this building here is beautiful and full of history, but the American Legion is no longer here in this building, unfortunately. They are in decline. The veterans organizations are in decline. Without the population to support them, and much of my generation, unfortunately, for whatever reason, has not been involved in a lot of the veteran services organizations. Those were our leading voices for advocacy on the Hill. And now that there's less VFWs and less American Legions and less people involved and less people to listen to them in Congress, it's just kind of compounded the effect that there's less and less and less of a voice for veterans, which is why it's important for those who have family members who served, and even more important for those who haven't had family members that have served, to advocate for those who have served. Less than 1% of the U.S. right now serves in the military. It's an all-volunteer force. And if it's going to remain an all-volunteer force, veterans have to know on the back end that the promises that were made up front to us to go into the service are going to be kept. So it's in the national best interest to make sure that veterans' policies and benefits are being upheld and listened to so that we have a strong national defense up on the front end. Otherwise, things that will be instituted, again, would be like the draft, and we know what comes with that. So there's kind of a circular interest from national defense to veterans to go back around, but it's definitely in decline.
Contrary to what I always believed, excuse me, I always believed any veteran could go into the VA hospital and be treated. Mm-hmm. That is not true.
No, it is not.
That totally put my husband was in for 6 years, and he's a retired teacher. Mm-hmm. But before they would even see, they said he being a retired teacher made too much money. Now, had he been on foreign soil, that's a whole different ballgame.
One of the biggest things that when I always worked at the VA and tried to get individuals when they were coming out of the military was to sign up for the VA. Once you're in the VA system, they can't kick you out unless it's for things like fraud, malfeasance, things like that. For that exact reason. We saw too many come back from Vietnam, Gulf War, or World War II that didn't sign up because they didn't think they needed it at the time, not realizing that there were thresholds, that if you make too much money, if you didn't do this, if you didn't do that, only to be surprised when they developed cancer from Agent Orange or something like that, that they did not get their veterans benefits. If they would have signed up when they would have been eligible, when they would have been younger, then they would have had those benefits later on in life. That is still an information battle that is being fought. There are many people, because you hear a lot of bad things about the VA, and some of it's true and some of it's not true, just like everything. Sign up. If you don't ever want to use the benefits, great. You don't have to. It's not going to cost you anything. But if you need them later in life, then they will be there for you. It's easier to do up front than it is at the end. And there are still Vietnam veterans that are fighting for Agent Orange benefits 50 years later. My generation will be dealing with the burn pits. Fortunately, we've learned a little bit of a lesson through history from the Vietnam veterans, and they've passed legislation a little faster to deal with it, but there's still numerous issues. I had veterans when I worked at the county that were part of the nuclear testing in the 50s that were still denied benefits. I've had veterans from every era that some got benefits and many were denied. I've had others that were on benefits that were then kicked off after 30, 40 years. And it completely destroyed their family dynamics. And those are things that through advocacy can be changed, because usually what happens is there's some sort of small policy change and then it has a catastrophic effect. There didn't always used to be financial requirements for the VA healthcare. They put those in place in the 90s. And when that happened, when those financial thresholds hit, then all kinds of people all of a sudden who were told during Vietnam that they would be eligible for benefits were no longer eligible. And it amounted to essentially a broken promise. And those types of things are what everyone should be advocating against. And if you make a promise up front, then you should, as the government, you should keep it to our military members and our veterans. So there's the veterans advocacy world in the military hospital kind of complex is very interesting and an intricate one, and it goes on more here in Pittsburgh than I think people realize. We are very involved with the Department of Defense and the VA through VA Pittsburgh Healthcare is one of the best in kind of also does a lot of research that a lot of other VAs don't do, but we also do research with the DoD through Carnegie Mellon. And we do over $2 billion worth of contracting through corporations, steel manufacturing, things like that in the Pittsburgh region for the Department of Defense. So there's a lot that goes on in this region that I don't know that a lot of people are aware of that goes on with our military and veterans.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have another one.
Have at it.
Besides contacting our legislators, what else could we do that could make a difference?
A lot. Volunteering with your local VFW, the American Legions. Hospice is a big one. There are many veterans that, for whatever reason, do not have family members, and at the last moments of their life, they're alone. Hospice volunteering is a prominent thing that I wish more people would be involved in. Nobody should have to be alone at the end, in my opinion, certainly not our veterans and people who have sacrificed their life and their health for the well-being of the country. Other simple things, just a thank you for your service is always nice to hear. A caveat on that, though, I will say you should say I appreciate your service and not thank you for your service. It's a small thing, but it's a nuanced thing. It's as a veteran, I've had plenty of folks who never served in combat and other things, and they feel weird when you say thank you for your service, because what am I supposed to say? You're welcome? It's a weird thing. If you say appreciate your service, then they can say thank you back and they can move on. It does make a difference when you're talking to veterans. Attending parades, helping your neighbors if you know that they're a veteran, helping them mow their lawns. We have a lot of veterans in the Pittsburgh region that as they get older or if they have a disability from the military, they can't mow their lawns. The roof is falling in. There's numerous issues that just doing a simple act for your neighbor who's a veteran would make a big difference.
You just said that if your roof fell in, do you have a resource for veterans if they have that kind of a financial problem?
Yes. So there's quite a few places. The first place that I would recommend going to is Veterans Leadership Program. So because we don't have an active duty military installation in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's developed this veterans ecosystem unlike any other major population center of veterans in the country. We have a lot of prominent nonprofits that work hand in hand with the government and the VA. Veterans Leadership Program, which started out for Vietnam veterans, operates in like 13 counties now. And what they do is they're like a clearinghouse for veterans resources. So if there's 25 different grants or programs available for veterans to help repair the roof, Veterans Leadership Program will help you go through all 13 of those. They're more of a one-stop shop. So that's a good place to go, a good place to start. If you're ever unsure, the VA is a good place to check your local VA because they know of those places in the area, like the nonprofits. So if you have friends or family in other parts of the country that need help, checking in with their local VA. They'll know who in their local area can help with problems like that. But it's something that we see a lot in the veterans space. It's also something that I see a lot in the local government space. When we have to go out and tell somebody that their grass is not within regulations and now there's rats in the area, and then you come to find out that, they're bedridden because they're a veteran, now you're kind of in this space of, well, you have to enforce the law, but you also have to have some empathy and see if you can get them some help. And we turn to resources like VLP and things like that to try and solve the problem that way first. Okay, great. Thank you.